Welcome to the People, Purpose, and Profits Business Coaching Podcast. My name is Brian Buck, and my wonderful co-host is...
And I'm Kat.
And we are excited today to serve our businesses, our small to medium-sized businesses, whether you're a solopreneur, coach, consultant, or you got a team between 5 and 100 people. This show is designed to help you make incredible impact and money in your business. So we want to talk about the topic of fitting in versus standing out and why it's important for you as a leader and also for how your organization appears in the world. You want to kick us off, Kat?
Yeah, I believe that, standing out has been frowned upon for a really long time because we were taught to live between certain guidelines, and it created too many similarities, and people started being very distraught. And now we're seeing more and more being encouraged to find our own passions, find our own voice, stand out in a way that's very relatable too. Because when we do that and when we find our authentic self, and I find it that, standing out means finding your authentic self and using that, you get to connect with people and you get to allow others to find the freedom that they needed to be their most creative selves.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think about from so many of the different entrepreneurs that I've worked with, so much of their businesses really are an expression of themselves. Uh,
Absolutely.
so the fact that your business represents your values, your ideas, the things that you believe will best serve those you care about. And it's interesting how many people in the small to medium-sized business space they have kind of already have figured out a bit of standing out. And we just want to just continue to encourage people on that journey is how can you stand out even more? And as a leader, how can you help your team members stand out?
Right. And then, that's a really, really good question because often enough, when we go into a business as an employee, we tend to become small and only one voice matters, and that's really what leads to people being dissatisfied to come to work, right? And I've
Mhm.
noticed, I was actually just having a conversation with a great leader, and that's one of the things that he recommended. He said that when they come to work, they have to bring their voice and they're not afraid to use it because they know that just like me, they have something that I don't have and they're adding to the business. So
Yeah.
that's why it's really important to find how you stand out. And here's the thing and the dilemma that people have. They often think that if I stand out, I'm weird or I'll be looked at differently. And that's like totally not true.
Mm.
It's really what people start to admire and what it encourages them to seek within themselves, that part that maybe for the longest time they minimized and they made quiet.
I just saw a fun quote last night. It says, "It feels weird to not be weird."
Right.
And right, because if you think about it, nobody is exactly the same. Even identical twins grown up in the same place,
Right.
they have very different lives when they get older. And just because not only do we act different, we react different, we have different experiences that we can bring, and then we also just even have different ways of perceiving things. You think about people who are 100% data driven, but then you also have people who are very empathetic, or there's people who see things in systems. All of those different perspectives actually help make your product and service even better. And to only rely on one voice and then you have people executing that voice versus participating to have an even greater voice.
Now, do you believe that standing out has to be something astronomical, something that, kind of gets you on the first page of the news, or can it be something more subtle and it can be something that's more for yourself rather than for what's perceived from the outside?
I think it definitely can be subtle. And really, the whole nature of all improvements is starting small. Just like standing out is something small. Once you do a lot of small standing outs, then it might add up to be a big splash standing out. But if you think about how many times have you had an idea that you didn't feel comfortable sharing? How many times have you felt like your values were violated, but you never spoke up for yourself and explained what the impact of that is and what your request and need is? Those are the things that always, that the small things can either build or the small things can lead to destruction. I think about when I was in a toxic workplace, I heard this phrase and it matched it perfectly. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts. It
Right.
wasn't one big thing that was toxic. It was a lot of little things. And each time I thought, I can handle this. I can deal. I'm emotionally resilient, whatever. But then it started to build up. So when you think about standing out, anytime we are subtly or overtly forcing people to fit in, that's destructive versus getting the value if we were subtly asking people to really stand up, put your voice in, be you. Because you know what? Your you might better react to customers that we don't have yet, you know?
Absolutely.
So, and all of those voices are about how do we serve better? How do we serve greater?
Well, first of all, I believe that is learning to take criticism, is not being afraid to be who you are, despite what the feedback is on the outside. Because if you look and you read all the success stories over time, they were met with opposition because they challenged the norms.
Yeah.
And in order to, take the world in a different direction, get better, grow, you do have to challenge some old beliefs.
Yep. I always joke I'm a sacred cow tipper. So, because really is sacred cows are only sacred cows because we choose to. Everything is a choice. Everything really is changeable. Yes, there's some people who need a little help with the journey of changing, and you definitely want to meet them where they're at. But at the same time, we don't want to leave them there. So often we kind of get stuck, and we get stuck because we are doing these little things that tell people it's better to remain stagnant.
You know what? I really have a great quote that I had it written for one of my courses back a few years ago. And that is that men's greatest burden is unfulfilled potential. And I
Mm-hmm.
really think that goes hand in hand with, fitting in, trying to please others, not going for your ideas, not following your dreams, being afraid to stand out. All of these things contribute to, at the end of your life, when you draw the line and you say, did I really live my life? Did
Mm-hmm.
I really let my voice be heard? It's more about the regrets than it is about the things you've accomplished, and you realize, what did I live my life for?
Right. I'd even add to that list not setting boundaries.
Oh, true. Absolutely.
Yeah, because that is a form of standing out to say, I love you, I care for you, but I'm here, you're there, and we are going to, because you don't make progress when you're fitting in. I almost want to say it's a Dr. Seuss quote, you were born to stand out. If we were supposed to all fit in, we'd look exactly the same and talk the
Right.
same. Right. And then if you even go further into the world of diversity and inclusion, equity and inclusion, it is about diverse voice. So, how can we as leaders help people stand out with their unique voices? Because if not, then we are forcing compliance to fit in.
Agreed. It starts with us, and often enough, we actually, what we have to do is be the one that walk it out first.
Right.
That's how you inspires others to do it, and that's how we lead by examples. We can sit here and preach it all we want, but if we're not out there doing it, then we're being hypocrites.
Right. And I do want to give a shout out to our business owners. You are already starting to stand out. And this episode is about how do you now take your journey and help others stand out as well. And, maybe if you don't feel comfortable doing that, Kat and I as coaches would love to be able to help your team to be able to do that, help you as a leader, because when you empower, sometimes people feel maybe it's a little disempowering, but my skill is helping people see you actually gain influence when you give power. So but I think that's something that could really help your team, help you be one of those first groups that are leading the way, and then other people will catch up to you. And once they'll never catch up to you, because then you're going to be onto something even greater and better. That's why we love our audience. You guys are people that inspire us. That's why we do this every week.
Yeah. And I would say, ask yourself, how do you need to stand out? And maybe that's something, I've seen businesses pivot, change direction because they were doing things that when they first started out seemed like a great idea. And, after a while it became, just very boring and not fulfilling to their heart. So don't be afraid that because you stood out in one way at a certain point in time in your business, it means that you have to stick with that for the rest of your life. Being in tune with what you want and how your dream evolved is something really important for a business. And especially, us as entrepreneur online, and even for businesses that are in person, sometimes going and finding out what drives you, what wakes you up in the morning, what brings the most to your clients, what makes your team be very engaged and very effective, very productive, are the things that can all be a part of how you stand out.
Yeah. Well, another way that you can stand out is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click and like this button. We would love your comments. You can also listen to us on the audio show, and that's on any of your podcatcher of choice. But another way to stand out is we have a Facebook group. Search for People, Purpose, and Profits Business Coaching Podcast on Facebook and interact with Kat and I and other entrepreneurs so we can learn how we can all stand out together, because especially if you haven't stood out or you stood out a while ago and your time for the next stand, get some support. Let help you get that courage to be able to do that, help you get those skills, get that feedback that says right on, this is what people need, and it's also what you need as well. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much.
We'll see you soon.